we went after Dennis. We chased him on the RZA's land. About 50 yards in, we hit soft earth. It was an old tunnel.
Tunnel to where?
Vicky's place.
Need a hand there, brother?
I got intel from Easy. He told me Galindo was being detained at Calexico East.
Galindo hasn't pinged in over 26 hours.
See if anyone scooped him up.
What about Easy Reyes?
Your deal is still in play. Now.
I'm not here to kill you.
What do you want?
Cooperation.
Partners.
He's home.
Miguel.
Good evening, Mrs. Galindo.
You think I sold out your father?
Who else could have known where he was?
Maybe the one who took the picture. Rodrigo.
Was my father really an animal?
We didn't start out that way. Huh?
Mother of exiles, the torch of hope, in the toss of the tempest, through as Madison's rope, but the brazen giant within the stride blocks the golden door to the U.S. of Ice. Damn your huddled masses.
Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Talking Mayans MC. I am Kinte. I am one of your hosts all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. We're doing our show a little early today, but that's all good. Let me introduce my lovely co-host. It's the one and only Jen. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great, Kinte. I have to say, I'm going to start out with the weather report from Hawaii. It's actually really nice today. It's gorgeous. It's about maybe 78, 79. I had this epiphany the other day when we were talking about how wonderful it is in all these other places. And specifically, this is about Mayans, right? Have you ever seen, unless it's specific, have you ever seen any better weather on a TV show than Mayans? I haven't. It's always sunny and beautiful out there. So,
well, it takes place in California. So,
I'm giving you all of the compliments in the world that your weather seems to be just as beautiful as mine.
Yes, and we don't have hurricanes, so.
And you don't have hurricanes. That's true, but you do have bike gangs, and we don't have those. So there's that. What? You have bike gangs, and we don't. So.
Well, you can have those if you have a bike. All right. So let's talk about this episode that aired last night. And this is episode 6 of our podcast, and we will be reviewing episode 8 of the series. And last night's episode was called Rata. And I think you can figure out why it was called that, as we've been talking about the animal motif that they have with the titles and also in the episodes. And we saw about 4 appearances of rats or rodents in this episode.
I think so.
Very early on, they had the little jump scare one in the flashback. And it's funny when I saw it, it made me think, what did you think about that? Not only, well, we'll start off with that appearance, but what did you think about that appearance of the rat and then others that we saw throughout the episode?
Well, if they're trying to say something with the rat that is maybe a little foreshadowing, it was a little bit hard for me to figure out exactly what they were saying, because I can't tell in that very first flashback which one of them would actually be that representative. I feel like both of them are.
Right.
Maybe that was the point.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, Easy is a rat, and also they wanted to turn Emily into a rat as well. So You know, I guess that you can say that with that motif. I noticed though, Angel seems to interact a lot with whatever is the title animal or insect or whatever.
Yeah.
It seems like they, like he was with the roach. He had a moment with the rat as well. Actually, a couple of moments. I wonder, are we supposed to look into that, or is he the one that doesn't care, the actor who says, "Hey, I'll act with anything."
I would
put a
almost believe that.
chupacabra in the scene with me, and I'm okay.
Yeah, that actually took. I feel like that actually took some courage on his part. I don't. It's funny. I tend to think that, and I'm glad that we'll probably get into this a little bit into the episode, but I tend to think that Angel is more of a pivot point for the MC than any other character except EZ. But Angel, there's something dynamic, and you're right. Every time we see him interact with one of the animals, it feels like it's a very directed message. And I there's a part of me that thinks that that's both awesome for us as the viewers, but it's also really kind of scary for Angel the character, because there's some, if these are the big overtones, there's some pretty heavy stuff heading his way.
Yes. So there's so much to unpack as there is every week. So I think a good place to start off with is, let's start off with the Galindos. Miguel, this one was very, very good. Potter and Miguel, as well as his wife as well, and the baby, little baby Reyes, was in this episode quite a bit as well, and was pivotal. And I love the mind games that Potter loves to play.
Yeesh.
And he really gets off on it. You could tell, like, he really loves that aspect of his job. And I love the interaction with him and Miguel, especially. Those scenes were very well done. Both actors did a very good job. So what did you think about that whole thing?
Well, first of all, I have to say one of my favorite lines of the night, other than Coco's lines, because damn, I love it when this guy waxes philosophical, was when Potter said, "It's spectrum stuff." I felt like that could be the tagline for that character throughout. It was just so perfect. And that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like he was organizing. Okay, well, let's make them comfortable. Okay, wait, let me read the body language. Okay, let me try this. Wait a minute, I've got a better idea. And it's strange how well orchestrated it sort of all became at the end. And how resistant both sides are, but how much Potter is just willing to say, look, I don't give a damn. You're going to do what I want, whether you think you're going to do what I want or whether you don't. But here, let me make it either easy or hard for you. I in some ways, I feel like this is, although I realize that this is a bigger fictional universe than perhaps our world could accommodate, it still feels really realistic. Like, yeah, that's probably how they would behave. Maybe not with all those subtle nuances, but you're going to do what we want. We'll try it this way, but if that doesn't work, we're going to go to the hard tactics. It just felt really real.
Yeah, it did. It really did. And, it's funny. A lot of times when you introduce characters that's been established on another show within a spinoff or something like that, it doesn't always go well, right?
Right.
And sometimes they just don't fit in the spinoff or whatever, But in this case, he fits perfectly within the structure of the show, and it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like just a cheap fan moment. Oh, let's bring a bad guy from the other show and bring it in there. Like, it fits perfectly, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. Is this something that's only for this first season? Is this going on? Is he going to be a bad guy on the show going forward? It's very interesting to see how this plays out.
Part of the reason I think that is the way that it is because Potter as a character is so beautifully written as an antagonist who isn't, at the same time that Potter sort of is kind of a strange caricature of a lot of things that we don't like about hashtag the government. He also is this incredibly present person as a character that has this there's a charismatic piece to him that is so understated that you just get sucked in to sort of his mental twisty turny thinking without even trying. And that, I think, that's all beautiful writing. That is, and also it is amazing execution by the actor. There is no substitute for how well he plays. Even his body language in the interview room was so on point, from where his legs were to the way that he shifted positions on that couch next to Galindo. Everything was so incredibly well timed and executed that it was just so easy to get sucked in. You just felt like you were in that moment, not necessarily just watching sort of what was happening. It was like you could really understand that what was happening between those two was a really important moment. I mean, I honestly felt like this was one of the times when, like you said, the introduction of a character may or may not work, and it may not have worked even in the last episode necessarily. We didn't get a whole lot of view from him, but in this episode, we're up close and personal with him, and it does work.
Yeah. And it's funny. It really works for this show, and I'm so happy that they did that, because I think this show really needed that. It needed that character, that with the gravitas, someone that you really feel like is a worthy adversary for our guys, and it really works. So,
well, when the thing is, when you're dealing with a drug cartel, right? It's hard to get bigger than a drug cartel, and so when you introduce the umbrella of some secret operation that is run by the government, that is a way to get bigger than the government. So the real antagonist, to create a foil for Galindo, you almost have to have something that would work on that subterfuge level. And this was masterful. It was really pretty brilliant, because otherwise, how in the world do you compete with the amount of money that he has to do stuff, the resources that he has to do stuff? And of course, the way that you do it is by bringing in a character that basically has access to unlimited resources. And so I think it was incredibly brilliant on their part.
Yes. And also, the question I have is, a lot of people hate his character because he's against our guys, but, can you make an argument for his tactics? Because, in order to fight those kind of evils, you got to go extreme. You can't go halfway. So what do you think? I mean, does the ends justify the means? Is he going overboard in your estimation? Is that somebody you would want fighting them?
It's a weird question to really sit back and think about. We actually talked about this last night after the episode, and it seems like a big theme in Mayans is exactly that point. Is it okay to do a little evil for the greater good? Because we see Adelita doing it. I think we actually see the bishop doing it in a weird, strange, twisty way. We see Galindo doing it. I'm going to build this big subdivision. This whole huge thing is going to be amazing. We're going to get people. Even the club does it. Even last night, oh no, I'm going to have a moment. Riz, even he was saying, yeah, but see, I'm not actually hurting anybody, and this is for the greater good. And so it is really a complicated question, and one that I think doesn't have an easy answer. But in terms of how this sort of plays out from the government to the drug cartel, oh dude, haven't we seen this before? Like, ooh, yeah, I don't think there's any good. I feel like I want to say, oh, of course there could be some good that comes out of this, but I don't know if that's actually true. I mean, I'm not of the opinion that sacrificing so much that way leads to something better. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely an argument that can be made on both sides. So, you know,
Even EZ does it. Even EZ does it. I mean, he's basically in the middle of the biggest subterfuge of his life, really, and he's trying to walk the line. I mean, in this episode alone, the number of things that EZ did that I don't feel like he would do necessarily, but he did them to protect or help someone else. It was a massive theme, just huge.
yeah. Um, I love that scene though, where Easy is thinking that they're about to, they're calling him because they're gonna do something to him, and then it's like, oh no, just we need you to fix the car. I love it, man. That is hilarious. He looked so happy to fix the whatever, I forgot what it was, but in the guy's car,
In the gasket.
Yeah.
I really loved Easy's little interaction at the door, where he like basically comes in and he prays and then he goes out and he's like super thankful. I just loved that. That was so great.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Oh, look, prayers do come true.
Like, yeah, it was the prayers that did it. It was definitely yeah, that was funny. Okay, so let's talk about Coco and his situation because you know uh it answered a question in this last episode about what was going to happen with Coco, about the information that Leticia, because we were trying to figure out, is it ever going to come to light? Now,
Yeah.
it didn't come to Coco, but it did go to Easy, and he decided to hold on to the information. But the scene where Easy goes to Celia's house and they're sitting next to the dead body, and him and Coco are talking, and he's basically, he's making jokes and he's making, light of what happened. And it was kind of hard to watch, just because, it's his mother, and, it was a very difficult scene. But one thing though, the way that I took it, his whole attitude, and later when he's making jokes about how they should bury her, like, I mean, it was so cringy, right? But the way that I'm taking it is that's just the way he's dealing with it. Like, I don't think he feels that way. I think that's just the way that he can wrap it around in his head. Am I wrong, you think?
Well, first of all, I think that when Coco, and I feel like this is sort of borne out with the way that they staged the scene. When Coco and Easy are talking, it felt to me like what Coco was telling Easy, first of all, in that scene was, it was like, this is her eulogy. And I mean that in a way that was like, look, he's not talking about her directly, but everything that he said was basically sort of like, mistakes are more important than anything else. You can't live in yesterday. You can't fix yesterday. All you can do is move forward into today. I feel like in some ways he was trying to say the nicest things that he could about her. And that this was his way of, you're right. I mean, obviously that is the way that he's dealing with it. But I also think, I can't think of, and of course I don't know anybody else's backstory, but it certainly does seem like it is intentional for us to know that Coco was not raised in a really supportive, loving environment. And I think that if you experience that much trauma and just dysfunction, I think you grow up to accept that kind of dysfunction is normal. So, I mean, I'm not saying you can't be a better person. Clearly, Coco is a better person than Celia ever was. But I also think that he will always be a dysfunctional human being because of the way that he was raised. We can see that by the way that Celia was reacting to Leticia. So that whole thing, when she was laying on the floor, he had pillows under her head. He had wrapped her sort of like, in a blanket and all that. It felt like this was her wake, and that they were discussing philosophically stuff about life in general, but they were really saying, or what Coco was really saying was, hey, this is the best explanation that I've got for the way that she behaved.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you can only imagine, man, to have to do what he did or he felt like he had to do. That's something that's going to live with him for the rest of his life. And, despite what kind of person you could say that she was, it was his mother. And I think it's probably something he thought about doing for a long time. And I think he kind of used the fact that to protect his daughter, was a way that he can, justify it in his head. I just wonder how much will this change Coco going forward as a character, to have this seminal moment. Is this something that is going to, change him forever on the show? Or is this going to be something that, that they're just going to say, okay, it happened and, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I think I think you're exactly right. I think it is. This is what happened and now I move forward, because that is exactly what he said as he was sitting there. I mean, that's exactly his advice to EZ. You can't live in what happened yesterday.
That is definitely what he said, but people say stuff,
for this whole thing being way more, sort of leaning into Catholicism and a little bit more, Christian. Man, Coco was really Buddhist last night.
Right. He sure was.
I mean, that's really super Buddhist. Yes. It's an awesome philosophy, and if all of them could live that way, and God, I especially think that EZ needed to hear that, because the things that happened later in the episode, to me, seemed to require him to call on that as a necessary understanding in order to make the choices that he made. I think that was really, I think it was actually pretty pivotal.
Yeah. That at the very end of the episode, when they had the body in the trunk, I had leaned over and I said, now if they get pulled over,
we knew it. We knew it. The moment that they put the body into the trunk and they broke the taillight, we all said the same thing. Oh, that's it. They're getting pulled over. Like every single one of us in the room.
Damn rat too. Oh man. Oh man. That
I want to go back to something. Mm-hmm. I want to go back to the scenes. This is something really interesting that we hadn't seen before, or hadn't seen it in its entirety, and that is the way that the MC functions as I won't call it a democracy, but the way that it functions as a system. That to me was fascinating, because we see both sort of how they make choices, how they come to a consensus, how they, put something on the table and decide. There are some really interesting power dynamics in there. But the biggest power dynamic that I thought was like the best of all was how they settle their insults. How, if you insult somebody, if you make some remark, or if you feel like your honor has been impugned, I suppose, the way that they have the cage match. To me, this is like the most interesting of all the dynamics in the MC, because it is absolutely positively a function of how you get together as a society and work out your problems without killing each other. And I loved that. I thought it was such a great representation of, yeah, okay, see, we're not going to just like head out with guns blazing. Here's the system that we have to figure out our differences. I loved it.
Yeah, I love it too. Like when I saw the cage match, I was sitting there dying laughing, and I love guys, that we could sit there and have like a fist fight and all of that, beat each other bloody, and then hug each other and go have a beer. Wonderful, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really, like, that's definitely foreign to me. I don't actually understand how you could do that, because I would be holding a grudge until I was like 105.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think
that
I, I, I I don't know that I could get away with it. I mean, not get away with it, but get over that. Yeah.
it was, and when you think about it, the the level at which they were, or for of what they were arguing over, was pretty big. I mean, this wasn't small. And also, oh my God, also before I forget, the fact that Coco and what's his name? I'm sorry, I can't remember his name at the moment, but the fact that they stepped up and said, no, 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 it wasn't just Angel, it was all of us. Uh, that to me was like, that was a huge moment. That was really shocking, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was cool though. Like
Because they were just on his case 2 seconds before that, saying, "Dude, you should have come to us. Why'd you just do that? That's awful. You can't just be selling us out like that." And then 2 seconds later, they're like, "Yeah, see, no, 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 no. It was all of us. We all did this." Like, whoa.
Yeah. All right. So Jimenez in this episode. Jimenez, you gotta love Jimenez because he is definitely somebody that will fight for what he believes in.
Yeah.
And he throws it on the line. He's risked his job. And he had a great line too in this one. I guess I'm gonna have to figure out another way to deal with my daddy issues.
I loved that. Oh my God, that was great.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And I also loved how he then gets called son right afterwards. That
Yeah.
couldn't have been better.
I mean, like I said, this episode had so much going on in it. Like, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. But I love though Jimenez is shaping up to be one of my favorite characters, along with Felipe, of course. And I wonder though, is this going to be the end of Jimenez, or are we going to get more from his character?
I mean, I obviously I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like there's more potential for his character to have interaction, and I think it has a lot to do with what Potter said earlier about his intel. I don't remember the exact line, but they were talking. Excuse me. They were talking about how specifically his intel was actually really good with EZ. And oh, I know what I was thinking. What I was thinking was at the end, we get just a small peek into Potter's maybe next level interaction, because he's looking at EZ. He's looking at papers from EZ, or on EZ anyway. And so in some ways, because nobody knows him better than Jimenez. And so in some ways, I feel like him being the handler is maybe they'll change the deal. Maybe now it won't be something specifically with the DEA. Maybe they'll change it up so that it gives him a lot more freedom to do a lot more stuff. Right? Does that make sense?
No, it makes really good sense. And that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Now obviously we knew that Potter and EZ was gonna collide at some point, and I like the way that they teased that. So it's gonna be really interesting when he brings him in, because he's set up real nicely for Potter.
Yeah.
So all he has to do is shake that tree. And the thing is, he's not beholden to any kind of deals or anything like that. He's going to do what suits him. He's not worried about reneging or doing any of that stuff, So yeah.
Well, and toward at some point, well, actually, I think I know what point it was when EZ says, "I'm not running." When Jimenez says, "Look, just go to the wind." When EZ says, "No, I'm not running," I mean, I think we all knew he was going to run anyway, but there was something really interesting about that moment where he said, "Look, we have to protect the blood." And that also, I think, is a huge thematic turning point, or, well, it's a huge thematic arching part of Mayans. But this idea that Angel has always been protecting EZ feels like it's about to shift.
Right.
and EZ is going to be the one that is going to be protecting Angel.
Right.
And maybe this is part of it.
Yeah, I mean, because he couldn't have just left because he knew that he basically put his brother in the trick bag. So, yeah.
Go
Go
ahead. I was just going to say it feels very much like the beginning part of Mayans so far, up to these last, well, actually, just up to this episode, I'll say, has really been about building these character relationships that show us, okay, and I think I said this last week, something about, well, whose side are you actually on? There is an interesting shift here, which it has to do, I think, with, it's not about whose side you're on. It's about where your morals are, where your principles are, where your sense of justice is. That's what defines who you are, because there is no right side or wrong side. It's all about personal justice. It's all about personal conviction and personal morals, because it's easy to see that the things that the MC does, they're not legal. I mean, any one of us would probably not, be running drugs or any of that stuff, right? But we can easily understand why not just these things are important, but how this is their system. This is what they do. It gets harder with Galindo because there is such a personal sense of violence attached to him. And it gets even harder with Potter because there is something nebulous about his power structure. But from each point of view, we see something interesting that says, okay, yeah, but you know what? See, he's got a sense of personal justice. He's got a sense of moral conviction. Galindo is trying to protect his family. He's also trying to protect a lot more, but there is a core value to him, which is don't mess with my family. EZ is doing the same thing. And Potter, in a strange freaking way, is doing something similar where and I feel like they kind of alluded to it here. He doesn't have family. His family is his mission. This is what he does. His protection is something way bigger than I got a kid and a wife and whatever. Does that? I know that sounds sort of esoteric, but I really think that that's a big piece to how he behaves.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine though, having that kind of a job, you're not gonna you can't be really have too many things in your life that will sidetrack you from your mission. So, Potter he just seems like he's a creature of habit, and this is what he does. This is exactly what it is. Yeah.
I can tell you one thing. He is so incredibly organized. I mean, that I felt so almost sad that they glossed over that report. It was whoever put that prop together did such a good job of sort of delving into Potter's mind, because it was so well organized and so sectionalized, and you could see that this is somebody who not just understands current infrastructure, but really gets how a single person can interact with that infrastructure and make choices. So he didn't just give Galindo a bunch of pages and say, well, here, go through it. He actually gave him sort of an actual roadmap to what was transpiring. And I think that was pretty genius myself. Yeah.
I agree. Definitely. All right. So before we get on out of here, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. Let's talk about the priest. And I understand why Felipe made this special trip down to basically tell him about Adelita and let him know that I know about what you did. With him by saying, now we're even. For the stuff that you did for me that helped me, I gave you this information. Now we're even. So my question to you is, how much stock should we put into the fact that he went down there personally to tell him, because obviously he's not he was very upset with his, what he did, and he could have possibly tried to off him himself, but he did tell him, he did let him know that she's coming for him. So I mean, what should we take from that?
Wow. Well, clearly we know what he took from it, because he then immediately got in touch with Galindo, which to me is like, wow, if we didn't think that this guy was a rat who would turn on anyone, we now know he will turn on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because to betray Adelita that way, that was I don't know. I was actually a little bit shocked. I maybe not hugely shocked, but shocked enough to think, wow, this is not about atonement. I thought it was about atonement, but it's not. He's not trying to atone for his past sins. He's trying to protect himself. And maybe what he thought was somehow doing what he was doing would protect him at large, not knowing who she was, but maybe he thought it would protect him at large from bigger consequences. I don't know. I'm still kind of struggling with that. But
we're talking about the priest, or
get the sense that...
Are we talking about the priest, or are we talking about Felipe?
No, we're talking about the priest.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we know that he was personally involved. Well, I mean, we know everything that leads up to this, and then when he talks to Galindo's man, what's his name? I can see his face and I can't think. Yeah, Galindo's man, whatever. When he talks to him, he says, basically, look, I need your protection. And that, and he knows, it's not like he doesn't know what Adelita has been doing or who she's been fighting against, or there's something. The hard part in all of this, and I feel like this is where you need a bigger brain than I have, is understanding where the story points come together. And we haven't been given quite enough information to connect every single dot, but there is something very messy about, in a great way, about how all of these lines intersect, because character motivation is a huge thing, but where Galindo is concerned, it feels like, God, in a strange way, it's like the Mayans and Galindo are the same. They're one big giant function, and so everybody else that interacts with them sort of they go in orbit around them. But the priest is different. Because he also knows, because he also has a personal connection to both sides, it feels really different from his point of view. Do you know what I'm saying when I say that?
No, yeah. But I mean, it's self-preservation. It was self-preservation back in the day, and now it's self-preservation now. The most important...
I know, but he's a priest now. I mean, like, at some point when you say... At some point when you say, is nothing sacred, it feels like this is really the epitome of is nothing sacred.
But he was a priest then,
though. I mean, yes. Wait, no, was he? He was a priest then? Did I miss that?
Yeah, remember in the picture he was.
He was a priest when he was working with them?
Yeah.
I somehow missed that.
Yeah, in the picture he was dressed.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you were saying. Okay. Yes. But even still, I still believe that is still a part of it. It feels like is nothing sacred is still very him turning on Adelita's parents. No, I shouldn't say it that way. Him being the rat in all these situations feels very much like there is something that fits with the statement, is there nothing sacred? And the answer is no, there isn't. And he is that piece. Where he intersects with all of the rest of the stories is so fascinating, because we have all of these kind of odd religious overtones, and all of I shouldn't say odd, they're unique and interesting overtones. And where he interacts, it's sort of like the worst of the worst of the worst, whereas everybody else kind of has a much um, I don't know what the word is, but they seem to have a much cleaner approach into this than he does. He's the dirtiest of all of them in some ways, and he's supposed to be the most virtuous. So there's a strange character juxtaposition there. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't want him to be my priest. That's for sure.
Also, do we don't know yet exactly. We don't know yet exactly what he is saying. Okay, now we're even, right? Because there could be more to that story than we even know.
No, I think it's pretty. I mean, it seemed pretty clear to me. He was talking about we're even. You helped me get out, and now I'm giving you this information that she coming to kill you, and now we're even.
Right. No, I'm not saying that part, that the scales. I'm talking about whatever their backstory is together. There could be more to that backstory than we understand.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So you know, it's very it's going to be really good these last couple of episodes because I think there is it's 10 episodes, right? Yeah. So
It's crazy how much Easy's dad really does have to do with sort of everything. It's so brilliantly laid out. I love it when I see that kind of amazing story mapping. It's like they didn't leave a single detail to chance. There's something fabulous about that. I just love it. Even Riz's story last night, even that feels like it's got all of these crazy tendril things that could come from it. And even that feels like, wow. I mean, they just keep setting stuff up so that future storylines can continue to build. And I never feel like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be the end, or I have no idea how they could possibly get from here to here. It always feels like it is such a wide open story, and that is just fabulous.
yeah. Yes. I mean, the way that they crafted this whole season has just been remarkable. I think it's been a great first season. I think it's it's right up there with the first season of Sons of Anarchy, maybe even more well crafted at the beginning of this show. So
yeah, as a first season, they're laying down a lot of foundation. It's good. I mean, this is. I know I say, some shows are really good, and I mean they are, but it takes something really special to be this level of good. And these guys definitely they get it. The team of writers, the actors. JD last night made me so happy. There's something about the way that he portrays Easy that is so soft and so it isn't sweet like the kind of nice that's I don't know. There's a kindness to him that he is just pervasive no matter how bad the things are that are going on around him. Somehow he manages to hold on to human kindness, and it's just astounding because not all the characters sort of have that soft edge to them. They just don't. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an easy character. Get it? All right. So, any last words before we get on out of here?
Boy, the only other thing that I definitely thought was pretty telling is they keep hinting constantly about the base yard guy, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know why, but I just keep calling him the base yard guy, and I never identify him by name. I keep thinking that there is something that is going to happen between him and Letty, and I don't know exactly what it is, but they make constant references to not just like how well they get along, but also like how creepy he is, and I don't know. something feels like it's there. I don't exactly know what it is, but I don't know why they would just keep making these references over and over again. Why did we need to know last night that he was a chronic masturbator? I mean, like, okay, putting something into the script for fun is cool, but I don't feel like that was just thrown in for no good reason either.
No, I mean that was what his character was in Sons of Anarchy. That's why his fingers are the way they are. It was because he wouldn't stop.
Right, I know, but let me rephrase that. Right, the show stands by itself. So, for people that have never seen Sons of Anarchy, when you approach this with a completely fresh set of eyes, there are things that happen in Mayans which remind us of, if you've seen Sons of Anarchy, we're reminded of things that have happened in the past. But it stands by itself in the sense that every time they mention something, it has something to do with the Mayans MC, not Sons of Anarchy. In other words, they don't rely on Sons of Anarchy to provide story fluff to move forward. They write whatever it is into the actual story itself and then go, okay, this is, so anybody who hadn't seen Sons of Anarchy would know immediately what's going on. You're up to speed right away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So so us being told that last night felt important to the story now, not to what we know already about him from Sons of Anarchy. That's what I'm saying. There seems to be something pervasively happening now. We didn't need to know that about him because we already know that about him if you'd watched Sons of Anarchy. But if you didn't watch Sons of Anarchy, then as a viewer, you would need to know that about him because it sets up something interesting for whatever's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't even think about it that hard, but you might be right. You might be onto something there.
Every time they mention something, and even Potter, every time they mention something that has happened in Sons of Anarchy, they set it up so well in Mayans to make sure that it is Mayans related. I mean, there's a couple shout outs to things that have happened to Sons of Anarchy that maybe you wouldn't know if you hadn't watched the show, but you don't have to have watched Sons of Anarchy for the Mayans to make complete and total sense. Everything you need to understand is right there in either the visual narrative or the script or pieces that happen inside of the story. So to me, once again, that is really brilliant because most spin-offs really rely very heavily on their source material in order to push any narrative forward. And Mayans doesn't feel like it does that at all. It feels like it just stands all by itself on a nice little island. I really like that.
Yeah, I like it as well. It's very refreshing. And they put in just enough of Sons of Anarchy so that so that we understand it's a world, know, extended universe as they call it, the kids call it these days. But I think that was really good, the way that they've done it, and it feels like it's its own thing, but it also feels like it's a part of something.
Well, we don't need to hear the whole story of Sons of Anarchy again because we already told that story. So as a new story, anything that you want to inject into the story, we have to be either, I mean, we can be reminded of it, but fresh viewers need to know it. So all the little things that we're told about what has happened before or references to things that have happened before in Sons of Anarchy, I don't feel like they're just accidental or not accidental. I don't feel like they're fan service. I feel like they're actually important to the story that's happening right now. That's what I mean about Steve.
Yeah. Okay. We'll find out.
We will.
Maybe, hopefully, in the next 2 episodes. Well, actually, it'd be the next. Yeah, 2 episodes.
Yeah, we're into 2 episodes. Yeah. Also, one last thing. I have to just really commend these actors for their presence on social media. There were some amazing moments last night on Twitter for sure. And they're so responsive, number one. And number two, it takes a lot out of these guys to respond both to criticism and accolades and have the same, affect and demeanor. And they really pull it off. They really do a great job. They're so respectful of the fans. They're so responsive to questions. I know that this must take a lot. And I'm just really appreciative as somebody who watches the show to see that level of involvement. It's really nice. Not everybody's like that. So they get a big shout out from me.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, and we gotta. I'm gonna work on trying to get someone from the show. Actually, Emil Rivera is his agent is my next door neighbor, so I need to go over to my next door neighbor and say, hey man, you gotta hook it up.
Yeah, right.
Give me an interview with your client there. So yeah, I'm gonna have to hit him up. I don't know why I even thought about it. I guess I hadn't seen him in a while, even though we live next door. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go next door and be like, hey man, you gotta do a show on your client's TV series. So let's hook up that interview.
Bake him some banana bread. Go over with a cup of coffee.
Yeah, well, he's from New Orleans, so I'll just tell him how great the Saints are, and that's my favorite team.
Oh, there you go.
But no, yeah. So if anybody out there who is on the cast or crew of the show that's listening to us, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We're going to be reaching out to you to come on the show and let's chop it up. So, but how can people get you in social media?
Social media, I'm on Twitter at followingbliss1, and on the internet, I am at criticallaughs.com and moviesmakethemeal.com.
All right. You can get me at Kinte F on Twitter. That's KINTEF on Twitter. You can go to our website. That's indyradio.org. That's INDY radio.org. And of course, we'll be back next week with an all new episode of Talking Mayans MC. Later today at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern, we will be doing a spotlight episode. We will be interviewing Dustin Ferguson. Not related to me at all. He's a producer and a director. We'll be talking about some of his upcoming projects. But it's so funny because people was like, is he related to you? Like, no, I don't spell my name like his. It's like we're a little off. Even though it's funny, I have an uncle who spells his last name with the Ferguson. And because he went to the military and they redid it and he never changed it or something crazy, so but he is my dad's brother. They were born with the spelling of the last name, but
Oh, revisionist history. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. But he is my uncle and related, even though he doesn't spell his name right. But he'll argue that this is probably how it's supposed to be. I'm like, stop it. That's not how no one in the family spelled their last name.
Well, at the interview, we'll have to have an epic debate about the correct spelling of the name.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The way that Dustin spells his name is the way that his family spells his name. We don't spell our name. Ours is Ferguson, not Fergus.
The question is, which is better?
Ferguson, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Come on, it's unique. One thing that's so great about having our last name is it's not a common last name. So what happens is, all the Gmails and .coms and everything with my last name is available. So,
oh, nice.
So I was able to secure all of that. So there's never been a. Actually, it's funny. I actually have Kinte Ferguson Twitter account, but I made it very early and I didn't remember the password. So then I started Kinte F. So so it's out there and it's me. I just don't know how to get into it. So it was like way early in the game. So I don't know. Maybe I'll repurpose Kinte F and then go to my full name. So I don't know. But anyway.
It's going to be a great interview.
It will be. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And please come back here on Indie Radio later today for our interview with Dustin Ferguson. Peace.